Hi everybody, this is Lisa and I'm one of the teachers here on Verbling, and it has been a while since I have taught a class, but so I'm doing one today, this hour. It is going to be a reading class, and so what I like to do in my reading classes is choose an article. I like to choose an article from a website. Usually, in this case, I think it was the New York Times, and it's from last year. And what we do is we read the article together. So you get to practice reading out loud. So you get to practice your pronunciation, but also you get to listen to me read and to other people read. So you get to practice your understanding, your comprehension, and then we discuss. So I'll go over what words mean, and yeah, so it's a good way to practice all the things that you do in a language. You're reading, except for writing. We're not going to be writing too much, although of course we do have the chat where people can write questions or make comments. So if you would like to join this class, you can do so by joining the class. If you are a member of Verbling, then you can join as many classes as you would like. I haven't been teaching on Verbling for a while, so there's some new changes in the way it's working. So we have lots of new teachers as well, and many languages, so not just English language classes, but also French language classes and Spanish, and I think Italian even. And so the Verbling.com website is getting very amazing with all the offerings that you can, things that you can do on the website. So I put over here a link to the article that we're going to be reading. I'm going to put it again. It looks like some people are starting to open the link. This is going to open up a Google document. So what I like to do is I like to, usually in the class description that you see on the Verbling page, I like to put the link to the original article, the original web page that the article can be found on. And then what I like to do though for reading is to copy and paste it into a Google document so that I can make it bigger, and then that way we can read it together and everybody can see it either by looking at it on our screen here, because the Verbling classes are recorded, and so some people like to watch the class later, and so they can read along as well. Otherwise, you can just look at the document, open it out yourself using this Google Documents link, and then that way you can open up a new window for in your browser so that you can read along with me. So if you are interested, you can go ahead and click the Join Class button, and we will see who comes to class today. It's 6 p.m. my time. Like I said, my name is Lisa, and I'm one of the Verbling teachers. I've been teaching a lot of classes on Verbling, but I've been off for a few weeks now. And so starting back up again, and today this slot was available, so I took it, and so we'll see who shows up. I know a lot of my regular students cannot make this particular time slot because they are in other parts of the world where they're probably sleeping right now. So, but maybe if you are in Mexico or parts of Central America, South America, maybe in Asia, this might be a good time for you to jump on and spend an hour with me and some other people who show up and do some reading in English. Like I said before, I like to do the reading classes this way because I think it gives you a lot of good opportunities to practice listening, reading, pronouncing words, learning new vocabulary, and I like to use real, authentic articles that are written usually at the intermediate to advanced level. I do. These articles often come from different websites like the New York Times or Wired.com or maybe Time magazine or something like that. And so these are real articles that people like me, native English speakers, will be reading. So the vocabulary is usually at a higher level, and but it's also usually topics that are of interest to a lot of the people here in Verbling. Topics about learning languages, learning in general, science, technology, um, human interest stories, things like that. So this particular article is called Your Brain on Fiction. So this article is talking about the idea of the importance of reading fiction. So maybe you know in English that we describe stories or books in two different ways. So fiction would be would be used to describe stories, books that you read that are made up. Somebody, an author, imagined a story, and so they wrote their story, and that's called fiction. On the other hand, we have non-fiction, which is describes books that are written more about facts, more about ideas, things that people are trying to teach you something you can learn from, like a book on science or technology, or something about if you wanted to learn about the human body or something. Those would be non-fiction. So a lot of times in the world today, in the United States, especially in our educational system, people are pushing non-fiction. So it's very important for students to be able to read for information, to get information, to read science books, to read books about philosophy, psychology, anything that you would want to learn, you would read nonfiction. Oh, hello there. We have a student join. Hey, Tiago, how are you?
Hey Lisa, how are you
Hey,
doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Long time no see.
Yeah, indeed. So, how classes going here?
Yeah, well, I just started a little bit ago and been talking away, and you are the first person to join. So
Oh.
um, I was talking about the article that I chose for us to read. Did you
hmm
get that link? Did you open it yet?
Yeah, I got the link, but my internet's terrible tonight, so
Oh,
it
really?
hasn't
Okay, maybe
opened yet.
I can put it up on the screen share here,
All
so
right,
then
thank you.
that'll be better for you. Can you see that?
Okay. Yeah, your
Okay.
brain of fiction.
Yep, your brain on fiction. Okay, great. So Tiago, tell me, have you been taking Verbling classes regularly?
Yeah, since
Yeah.
I've enrolled myself now, yeah,
Good.
it's been great, because this is a very good website, Lisa,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
it's
really
nice.
like it.
I think they keep working to improve it too. So every few days or every week they have something new, a new feature, new language coming, things like that.
Oh, I hope I
Yeah.
can teach as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Okay, great. So Tiago, remind me, you're in Brazil?
Yeah, I'm from
Okay.
Brazil, right?
What state are you in?
I'm from Bahia and I live here as well.
Hmm. Nice.
Have you ever been here or heard of it?
No. Well, of course, I've heard of it. I've worked with
Uh,
many students from Brazil, but I have never been to Brazil. But I hope to go someday soon, not in the not too distant future, we say.
oh, you're so welcome here.
Yeah. Oh, well, my brother was a foreign exchange student to Brazil when he was younger in his teenage years, and he loved it, and he has been back a couple of times, and so
Oh,
yeah, definitely a
well,
place I want to go.
well, all right. That's good. That's good.
Okay, awesome. So,
Oh,
yeah.
if I just drop off, it's because of my connection, So
Okay.
I'm
Well,
sorry if I just went away.
yeah. Okay. Will you be able to get back on, do you think, or?
I hope so. It
Yeah.
was happened. I was taking Spanish classes and like
Oh.
many times I dropped off.
Oh, yeah. That's a bummer. Yeah, I don't know why. I guess sometimes the internet just slows and then it drops us off, and So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
happens.
All
All right.
right.
Well, we can get started, and then if other people want to join in,
Mm-hmm.
then they can at any time. So it does look like a couple of people have opened the document that we're going to read. So maybe some
All right.
people will join us. I know that there was a class scheduled before this one, but then it got canceled. The teacher, I think, got sick or something, and so.
Oh.
So maybe some people are just realizing there is a class going on right now. So
All right.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So as I was saying, this is the title, Your Brain on Fiction by Annie Murphy Paul. And why don't why don't you just read and we'll get started. Usually, hi Selma. I guess I'll do it the regular way. I guess I think we have time
Okay.
with just two people. Hi Selma. Maybe you don't have your microphone on yet. So I'm going to read one paragraph, and then you guys, we will take turns reading, and then we'll go over any vocabulary or things you want to discuss about this, so that make sure you guys understand everything, and then if we have time, we'll discuss it. If you want to tell me your opinions, your ideas, what you think, I think it's pretty interesting. Again, the article, the link to the actual article is here. It was from the New York Times of last year, 2012. So. All right. Amid the squawks and pings of our digital devices, the old-fashioned virtues of reading novels can seem faded, even futile. But new support for the value of fiction is arriving from an unexpected quarter, neuroscience. Okay, Tiago, you want to read that?
Yeah, I got that. But the first words, oh, that's pretty weird.
Amid. Amid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another word. It just is a word that
Um,
describes like in the middle of, like if you think of the, like if you're in the middle of a bunch of people, you could say amid the crowds of people. It's kind of a very flowery way of talking, like a
all
that you would
right.
read in a fiction usually. Okay, so
Mhm.
amid or among the squawks.
Mhm. Is that like Old English?
I don't think it's old English necessarily. It's definite. My mic on? Okay. It
Okay.
definitely is used. Yeah, amid, but no, I wouldn't say it's old.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And squawks,
Squawks. So a
squawk.
squawk, yeah, that's like, so she's trying to describe like the noises of like the iPads and the computers and things that we hear nowadays that are everywhere. So a
Um,
squawk is usually you say a squawk is like something that a duck does. Quack, quack, quack.
oh,
That's like also called a quack, but it's also a squawk. And a ping is like, when you get an email or something, it goes ding, ding. You have
mhm,
different noises so she's just basically trying to describe like amid or among or amongst the squawks and pings. So the noises really is what she's trying to describe of our digital devices. So all our
mhm.
computers and things like that.
All right.
Yeah, that's
Great.
what she's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to read that?
Oh, the first one or the second
Yeah, the
one?
first paragraph. Go ahead.
All right, sure. Amid the squawk and pings of our digital devices, the old-fashioned virtues of reading novels can seem faded, even futile. Fut-
Hmm.
why? But new support for the value of fiction is arriving from an unexpected quarter, neuroscience.
Yeah. So she's just starting off her article here, just kind of saying that, with all this technology that we have, sitting down and actually reading a book, a novel, paperback or something, seems like something from a long time ago, and it might even be futile. Like, it's not even worth doing anymore. And that's what a lot of people are afraid of with all the technology that we have, is that people won't want to read. They just want to watch videos or watch TV, movies, things like that. And so she's saying that there's new support for the value of it. So some people are saying that it is good and there is value in doing it. It's a good thing to do, and the place where we're getting that information is from neuroscience, so the scientists who study the brain, basically, and the nervous system. All right, Selma. Hi, Selma and Ettore. How are you?
Hi teacher, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Okay, good. I didn't hear you before. All right, so I'll read, and then Selma, you can read after me. Brain scans are revealing what happens in our heads when we read a detailed description, an evocative metaphor, or an emotional exchange between characters. Stories, this research is showing, stimulate the brain and even change how we act in life. Okay, Selma?
Brain scans are revealing what happens in our heads when we read a detailed description, an evocative metaphor, or an emotional exchange between characters. Stories, this research is showing, stimulate the brain and even change how we act in life.
Mm-hmm. So here, brain scans, like you guys probably know brain scans, with MRIs, they put you in the machine and then they look at what's happening to your brain when you do different things. So the word reveal means to show. So these brain scans are showing what's happening when we are reading descriptions. Descriptions like in fiction, oftentimes when they're explaining the stories, they might be describing the room that the person is in or the beach that they're on, something. And a lot of times it's very detail oriented. There's lots of details, the color, the sounds, the smells, all those things, so you can get an image in your mind. And even in evocative, the word evocative is something that's very interesting. It's making you think, ooh, I want to know more about that. So that these types of things, the emotional exchanges, maybe two characters are having a fight, or maybe they're having like a love scene or something like that. Those are things that are stimulating our brains, and they're maybe even influencing how we behave, how we act in our lives. All right, researchers have long known that the classical language regions like Broca's area and Wernicke's area are involved in how the brain interprets written words. What scientists have come to realize in the last few years is that narratives activate many other parts of our brains as well, suggesting why the experience of reading can feel so alive. Words like lavender, cinnamon, and soap, for example, elicit a response not only from the language processing areas of our brains, but also those devoted to dealing with smells. Okay, Ettore, you want to read? Sure.
Sure, can.
Okay, all right, awesome. Go ahead and read what I just read. So.
Mhm. Researchers have long known that the classical language regions, like Broca's areas and Wernicke's area, are involved in how the brain interprets written words. What scientists have come to realize in the last few years is that narratives activate many other parts of our brain as well, suggesting why the experience of reading can feel so alive. Words like lavender, cinnamon, and soap, for example, elicit a response not only from the language processing areas of our brains, but also those devoted to dealing with smells.
Mm-hmm. So, these guys, so they already know that there's some parts of the brain, these areas right here, that have names. They are the areas where our brain interprets what we're reading, and whether that's probably in your native language or in English or other languages. But they're coming to realize, so they're learning through their experiments, that narrative. So a narrative is when you're telling a story, you're narrating a story. That means telling a story. So a narrative is a noun, and it means story. So the stories also are activating other parts. So when we hear words, they make us think of not just the plant, and I don't just see it in my mind, like lavender. You guys might know that plant. It has a very nice smell that people like. It's purple, so you might be able to see it, but you also are activating the area in your brain where the smells, where you actually might smell it, or cinnamon or soap or something like that. It's not just something you see in your mind, but also other areas of your brain are being activated. So this is something new that they're finding out. They didn't realize all this was happening just when you're reading something. Okay, in a 2006 study published in the journal Neuroimage, researchers in Spain asked participants to read words with strong odor associations, along with neutral words, while their brains were being scanned by a functional magnetic resonance imaging (fMRI) machine. When subjects looked at the Spanish words for perfume and coffee, their primary olfactory cortex lit up. When they saw the words that mean chair and key, this region remained dark. Okay, Tiago.
Yeah. In a 2006 study published in the journal Neuroimage,
Yes.
researchers in Spain asked participants to read words with strong odor associations along with neutral words, while their brains were being scanned by a functional magnetic resonance imaging (fMRI) machine. When subjects looked at the Spanish words for perfume and coffee, their primary olfactory cortex lit up. When they saw the words that mean chair and key, this region remained dark.
Yeah, good. I wanted to go back. I forgot. I wanted to make sure you guys knew this word, elicit. Elicit a response. It means you make a response happen. So you make something happen. When you elicit something, you make something happen. So yeah, so this is a few years now, but they were doing these studies. A few words here. So the participants, of course, those are the in doing the research study. They were the people who were involved in the study. So something that has a strong odor. So the odor is the smell. So if you have a strong odor association, that's usually with words that have strong smells. Like maybe you guys know licorice. For me, that has a really strong smell. Black licorice. Or anise is the spice. Some spices are very, they have a big smell that you can smell from a long ways away. So they were putting these, we were having them read words with strong odor associations, and then neutral words. So these were words that really have, you don't necessarily think of some kind of smell when you read the word chair or key or something like table, but of course coffee, that brings up for a lot of people the smell of coffee. So, and that's what they found out, basically, that the olfactory cortex lit up. So olfactory, that means the smell area. Olfactory means smell. And that's what they found. So that kind of makes sense, in it seems. The region, the other region, or this region remained dark. So that means it did not light up on the MRI, the fMRI. It just stayed dormant or asleep or not activated, we could say. So it wasn't being activated with certain words, only with the words that had a strong odor association, where you think of smells. So coffee, yeah, Tiago.
Just since we're talking about the brain, I've seen a documentary recently, and it talked about that the only time that our brain works as a whole with all parts is when we play an instrument.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Very interesting. Right?
So otherwise, it's just certain parts are being lit up and used, we could say, activated. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. The brain research is, they're doing more and more brain research all the time. So it's like every year, every couple months, there's new things coming out, new ideas, and people are trying to understand, is this in one part of the brain or more parts of the brain, and what happens if this? I think those studies that are really interesting are the ones where people have like damaged parts of the brain, like their parts of the brains are damaged, yet some things still happen for them. Some things that you would think couldn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, hey there, Ezekiel, welcome.
Hi Lisa, nice to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you. Okay, Selma, I'm going to read this, and then also, you guys, I think you guys all remember, but if you have any questions, you want me to explain a word or a phrase or something like that, then let me know. I will be happy to do that. I'm picking out a few things, and I'm also kind of paraphrasing, so after we read the paragraph together, I'm kind of saying the same thing, but in different words a little bit. So that's all. That's another thing to practice doing when you're for you guys too, for speaking, is to paraphrase paragraphs instead of instead of saying exactly the same thing, say it with your own words in a different way. So I'm doing that kind of as a modeling, but you guys can practice doing that as well. All right, the way the brain handles metaphors has also received extensive study. Some scientists have contended that figures of speech like a rough day are so familiar that they are treated simply as words and no more. Last month, however, a team of researchers from Emory University reported in Brain and Language that when subjects in their laboratory read a metaphor involving texture, the sensory cortex, responsible for perceiving texture through touch, became active. Okay, Selma. I don't hear you, Selma. There you go.
The way the brain handles metaphors has also received extensive study. Some scientists have contended that figures out of speech, like rough day, that are so familiar that they are treated simply as words and no more. Last month, however, a team of researchers from Emory University reported in Brain and Language that when subjects in their laboratory read a metaphor involving texture, the sensory cortex responsible for perceiving texture through touch became active.
Yeah. So the way the brain to handle something is to deals with it, or how it what it does with it. So they're talking about, when we're reading a work of fiction, a lot of times the language is not so concrete. They don't just say, the boy felt happy. They describe in metaphors how things are, and these things are activating certain parts of the brain. So they're saying here that, for example, a rough day. So that's, nobody has really a rough day, in the sense that rough usually refers to something like maybe sandpaper. If you guys know what sandpaper is, it's used to sand down wood to make it nice and soft, but it's rough. It means it's not smooth. So rough is like the opposite of smooth. But in America and in other places where they speak English, you might say, oh, I had a rough day. It means you had a hard day or a difficult day. Something went on for you. But these words are so familiar. That means everybody knows them. We use them so often that it's not activating that area of where we talk about touch or sensory. This is the sensory cortex that it's only being activated when you're reading things about how something feels, the texture of something. So when you're reading a work of fiction and the author is describing perhaps the way that maybe somebody's clothing felt, or the couch that the person was laying on and how it felt, you can really get an image of that, or a feeling of that even, in your own mind while you're reading that. And that's because this sensory cortex is being activated, or it's becoming active. Yeah. Metaphors like the singer had a velvet voice and he had leathery hands roused the sensory cortex, while phrases matched for meaning, like the singer had a pleasing voice and he had strong hands, did not. So again, these are the examples. So the texture is the velvet right there. So if you know what velvet is, it's very soft material. They make dresses out of velvet, and it's very can be very warm and comforting. So you get when you read that word in English in a story, that gives you a lot different feeling than just to say something like very concrete, like the singer had a pleasing voice. So this means the same thing perhaps, but it gives you a different image, and your brain is activating different areas. In this case, it's the sensory cortex, your senses. All right, I'm going to skip that one for you guys. I'm going to read this one. Researchers have discovered that words describing motion also stimulate regions of the brain distinct from language processing areas. In a study led by the cognitive scientist Véronique Boulanger of the Laboratory of Language Dynamics in France, the brains of participants were scanned as they read sentences like John grasped the object and Pablo kicked the ball. Okay, Ezekiel, you want to read that one?
Okay. Researchers have discovered that words describing motion also stimulate regions of the brain distinct from language processing areas. In a study led by the cognitive scientist Veronique Boulanger of the Laboratory of Language Dynamics in France, the brains of participants were scanned as they read sentences like John grasped the object and Pablo kicked the ball.
Yeah. So they were, this is she's just continuing to describe the basic idea that depending on what words you're reading, different parts of your brain are being activated. So we're going to get into why this is a big deal. her reason for writing this. The scans revealed activity in the motor cortex, which coordinates the body's movements. What's more, this activity was concentrated in one part of the motor cortex when the movement described was arm-related, and in another part when the movement concerned the leg. Oh, it totally dropped off. Okay, Selma, why don't you read that for us about the difference with the arms and the legs?
The scans revealed activity in the motor cortex, which coordinates the body's movements. What's more, this activity was concentrated in one part of the motor cortex when the movement described was arm-related, and in another part when the movement concerned the leg.
Yeah. So yeah, it just depends on what they're describing, what we are reading, then our different parts of our brain are being activated. That's pretty. So motor, of course in English lots of words have lots of different meanings. So a motor can be the motor in your car, for example, like the engine, the thing that makes the car go. But in this case, motor is also referring to the movements that you have, that you make with your body, your arms, your legs. Those are your motor movements. And the motor cortex then is related to that part in the brain that is about movement. And I guess there's different parts related to either arms or legs. So this word here, when it concerns the leg, so that just means when it was about the leg, a movement. The brain, it seems, does not make much of a distinction between reading about an experience and encountering it in real life. In each case, the same neurological regions are stimulated. Keith Oatley, an emeritus professor of cognitive psychology at the University of Toronto and a published novelist, has proposed that reading produces a vivid simulation of reality, one that runs on minds of readers just as computer simulations run on computers. Okay, Ezekiel?
Yes, okay. The brain, it seems, does not make much of distinction between reading about an experience and encountering it in real life. In each case, the same neurological regions are stimulated. Keith Oatley, an emeritus professor of cognitive psychology at the University of Toronto and a published novelist, has proposed that reading produces a vivid simulation of reality, one that runs on minds of readers just as a computer simulation runs on computers.
Right. Yeah, good. Yeah, so that's interesting. It doesn't matter. It's not making a distinction. So when you make a distinction between one thing and another thing, you point out the difference. But it appears that when we're reading something, our brain doesn't know that it's not happening. So we could be reading about it or actually encountering it, or encountering means finding it in our own lives, having it happen to us. Um, and so the same neurological regions, so the same parts of the brain being stimulated, whether or not we're reading or actually doing it in real life. So this cognitive psychology, that's the type of psychology that deals with cognition, which is your brain, your functioning, and how you recognize things. So he has proposed that it's basically the same thing as like a simulation on a computer, only it's your mind. So your mind is like the computer, and it's producing a very vivid simulation. So something that's very vivid, that word vivid is used to describe something that is like, seems like it's really happening. It's really feels like real life, versus something that isn't very vivid. It's like you don't really believe that it's happening. So reading can produce that in our brains. So fiction, with its redolent details, so lots of details, imaginative metaphors, and attentive descriptions of people and their actions, offers an especially rich replica. Indeed, in one respect, novels go beyond simulating reality to give readers an experience unavailable off the page, the opportunity to enter fully into other people's thoughts and feelings. Okay, Selma?
Fiction, with its redundant details, imaginative metaphor, and attentive descriptions of people and their actions, offers a especially rich replica. Indeed, in one respect, novels go beyond simulating reality to give readers an experience unavailable off the page, the opportunity to enter fully into other people's thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. So this is the interesting part about this is fiction. So remember, again, fiction is stories. It's just made up stories. So an author has created a completely new story, a way of seeing things, describing all the things that the characters see and feel and smell. And so when we're reading it, we can really get into this. And so she's saying it's an especially rich replica. So it's like a replica is when you copy something, so it's like a copy of real life, but in fact it goes even beyond that. So for example, like we have our own lives, like you guys have your own lives in your day, and you have your own thoughts and your own feelings, but if you read a work of fiction, especially a really good one, a well-written one, it can take you beyond just your and put you into somebody else's life. And so it's simulating. Simulating means to make it like it's real. It's creating a real life kind of situation. And so as a reader, you can be, for example, I live in the United States, but if I read a book that's taking place in another country, and it's being all these different things are being described, then maybe I've never been to that country, but I can feel like I am. Like it feels like I'm there experiencing this, something that is unavailable off the page. So something that hasn't really happened to me in my own life can happen while I read. So that's an interesting thing about fiction. It's not just describing the everyday life of you, normal people. It might be describing lives of all kinds of other people that you wouldn't ever live those lives, for example. The novel, of course, is an unequaled medium for the exploration of human social and emotional life. And there is evidence that just as the brain responds to depictions of smells and textures and movements as if they were the real thing, so it treats the interactions among fictional characters as something like real-life social encounters. Ezekiel.
Okay. The novel, of course, is unequaled. Sorry, could you repeat that word?
Sure. Unequaled.
An equaled medium for the exploration of human social and emotional life. And there is evidence that just as the brain responds to depictions of smells and textures and movements as if they were the real thing, so it treats the interaction among fictional characters as something like real-life social encounters.
Yeah. Encounters. Good. Yeah. So the novel. So a novel is a long story. Like it's
Yes.
So it's not a short story. Sometimes we have short stories, but the novel would be like, I don't know. For example, one of the newest movies that came out in the summer was The Great Gatsby. I don't know if you guys. The Great Gatsby. That's a famous.
It's based on
Yes.
a famous novel.
Yes. So yeah.
Novel.
Yeah. Did you guys see that movie?
No,
Yes.
but sorry.
Yeah. Selma, did you?
Yes, I saw the movie and I read the book.
Oh, you did? Okay. What did you like better, the book or the movie?
Well, the movie was much better than the book.
Okay. All right. So, yes, because we're modern people. So that book was written a long time ago, and of course there are some books that are better at doing this. What this person is saying, the author here is saying that the brain is responding not just to depiction. So a depiction is a description of the smells and the textures and the things that are happening, but also it's like when we're reading fiction, sometimes if an author is really good, then it almost feels like the characters are our friends, like we're in having some kind of a relationship with them, like we are going to the same places they're going to, and feeling like we're having some kind of social encounter. A social encounter is when people get together. So in some novels that we read, especially the ones that are very popular throughout the world that have been read by all kinds of people, the reason why so many people like those novels is because they can really relate to the characters and feel like they're like kind of there with them. I don't know if you guys have had that experience, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's get through the article because maybe we can talk about the difference between the novels and movies, which is what is coming up right now in this article. Raymond Marr, a psychologist at York University in Canada, performed an analysis of 86 fMRI studies published last year in the Annual Review of Psychology and concluded that there was substantial overlap in the brain networks used to understand stories and the networks used to navigate interactions with other individuals. In particular, interactions in which we're trying to figure out the thoughts and feelings of others. Scientists call this capacity of the brain to construct a map of other people's intentions theory of mind. All right. So, Selma, was it your turn?
Yes, teacher.
Okay.
Raymond Marr, a psychologist at York University in Canada, performed an analysis of 86 fMRI studies published last year in the Annual Review of Psychology and concluded that there was substantial overlap in the brain networks used to understand stories and the networks used to navigate interaction with other individuals, in particular interaction in which we are trying to figure out the thoughts and feelings of others. Scientists call this capacity of the brain to construct a map of other people's intentions theory of mind.
Mm-hmm. So basically what they're saying is that they came to the conclusion, the result of the study was that there was substantial overlap. So substantial means quite a bit, so it was important enough to write the study about. Substantial overlap. Overlap means when you overlap something, you put one thing on top of the other thing. And so what's happening is these different brain networks are being overlapped when you're listening to stories. And so what happens is listening to these stories is helping people navigate. So that means to like navigate their interactions with others. So basically, how to get along with other people. So when you read stories, it's helping you understand how other people might think or feel. And the scientists are telling us that they're calling this the theory of mind. When a person has the capacity or the ability or the not really power, but the capacity means like when you are capable of doing something, when you can do something. So the brain can construct or build a map of other people's intentions. So we're trying to figure out why this person is doing this. And now when we read stories, apparently this can use the part of the brain that helps people understand other people. So narratives offer unique opportunity to engage this capacity as we identify with characters' longings and frustrations, guess at their hidden motives, and track their encounters with friends and enemies, neighbors, and lovers. Okay, Ezekiel.
Okay. Narratives offer a unique opportunity to engage this capacity as we identify with characters' longings and frustrations, gaze at their hidden motives, and track their encounters with friends and enemies, neighbors and lovers.
Yeah. So when we're reading stories, we're always guessing, we could say, or we're trying to identify, we're trying to figure out what are these people longing. When you long for something, it means it's what you're wanting. What does this character want? Why are they frustrated? Why are they upset? Why are they irritated? And we guess at this word hidden, their motives. Maybe we don't understand why that character did that, and so it's not so clear, but we're guessing. Why did they do that? What was the motive for doing something? And we're tracking. That means we're following their encounters. So with friends and enemies, neighbors, lovers, we're trying to make it all make sense in our mind. We're trying to figure out what. And usually in a very well-written novel, you might have some really good suspense, and you might have to keep guessing until the very end. Why is this happening? And then in the end, it might be resolved, but you don't know necessarily when you're reading it. It is an exercise that hones our real-life social skills, another body of research suggests. Dr. Oatley and Dr. Marr, in collaboration with several other scientists, reported in 2 studies published in 2006 and 2009 that individuals who frequently read fiction seem to be better able to understand other people, empathize with them, and see the world from their perspective. This relationship persisted even after the researchers accounted for the possibility that more empathetic individuals might prefer reading novels. All right, Selma, you get a longer one. It's pretty long. Go ahead.
Okay. It is an exercise that bones are real life. That hounds are real-life social skills. Another body of research suggests Dr. Oatley and Dr. Marr in
Collaboration.
collaboration with several other scientists reported in 2 studies published in 2006 and 2009 that individuals who frequently read fiction seem to be better able to understand other people, empathize with them, and see the world from their perspective. This relationship persisted even after the researchers accounted for the possibility that more empathetic individuals might prefer reading novels.
Yeah. So it is an exercise. So reading fiction is an exercise that hones. That means when you hone something, it makes it better. You're making it better. So you're honing your skills usually. So practice, like if you're a soccer player or something and you want to hone your skills, that means you want to get better. You want to improve your skills. So apparently they're saying that these studies show that reading fiction helps us have better social skills, so it means better relationships with people. So collaboration, that word right there, collaboration. Several scientists worked together. When you collaborate with somebody, it means you work together with them. And so they found out that people, individuals, who frequently, that means often, like a lot, read fiction, they're better. They can understand people. They can empathize. That means they can understand a person's situation and understand why a person might be feeling sad or angry or happy or something. And they can also see the world from a different perspective, the perspective of another person, not just their own perspective. Perspective is how you see the world. So what your opinions are, what you think is happening, that's your perspective. And they're saying that even when they accounted for, so when you're doing scientific research, for example, you have to account for all the different possibilities. So it could be possible that just that people who are already like that prefer to read novels instead of magazines or nonfiction or something like that. But they say that no, that wasn't the case. It means that even it has the effect. So reading novels actually increases people's ability to be more empathetic and to have better social skills. All right, a 2010 study by Dr. Marr found a similar result in preschool-age children. So that's before school, so maybe like 4 or 5-year-olds. The more stories they had read to them, the keener their theory of mind. An effect that was also produced by watching movies, but curiously not by watching television. Dr. Marr has conjectured that because children often watch TV alone but go to the movies with their parents, they may experience more parent-children conversations about mental states when it comes to films. Okay, Ezekiel.
Okay. A 2010 study by Dr. Marr found a similar result in preschool-age children. The more stories they had read to them, the keener their theory of mind, an effect that was also produced by watching movies, but curiously not by watching television. Dr. Marr has conjectured that because children often watch TV alone, but go to the movies with their parents, they may experience more parent-children conversations about mental states when it comes to films.
Yeah. So they found similar, so similar means almost the same results. The keener, the word keener there is means the better their theory of mind. So their ability to relate to other people, understand why people might be doing something was keener or better, you could say. So I thought this was interesting because nowadays so many people watch movies on TV. So I was wondering what the difference would be nowadays between movies and the television, since are they really talking about movies as longer stories, or television, which is often like short sitcom-y type things? It's not so much like an in-depth story. Maybe it's only 30 minutes long and it's just kind of funny or something, but a movie is actually a lot longer and it usually tells a much more detailed, more involved story.
Sometimes television is based on cheesy stories or silly stories or simple stories. And movies have more complex stories, more complex structures.
Yeah, I wonder. So I wonder if they would do that study again, if it really matters, if it's like the television program or the movies, or the fact that, like they said, that the parents might be talking to their children more, because presumably the parents are watching the movies too, which I don't know if that's true nowadays. With it's so easy for the kids to get a movie up on their iPod or their iPad or computer or something like that. So, yeah. Fiction, Dr. Oatley notes, is a particularly useful simulation because negotiating the social world effectively is extremely tricky, requiring us to weigh up myriad interacting instances of cause and effect. Just as computer simulations can help us get to grips with complex problems such as flying a plane or forecasting the weather, so novels, stories, and dramas can help us understand the complexities of social life. Okay. Selma?
Fiction, Dr. Oatley notes, is a particularly useful information because negotiation in the social world effectively is extremely tricky, requiring us to weigh up uh, myriad
Myriad.
myriad
Mhm.
interacting instances of cause and effect, just as computer simulations can help us to get to grips with complex problems such as flying a plane or forecasting the weather. So novels, stories, and dramas can help us understand the complexities of social life.
Yeah. Right. So again, we keep hearing the word simulations, like simulating real life. Negotiating the social world effectively is extremely tricky. So that there just means that basically getting along with people, understanding people, going out and dealing with people can be difficult. It can be tricky is kind of like it's not so easy. It can be difficult. It can also, the word tricky can also mean it's kind of like you might think, oh, this is going to be easy, and then somebody says something, and then you're like, I don't know what they're talking about. So it's not so easy. And so this word myriad, it says it requires us to weigh up myriad interacting instances of cause and effect. So myriad is just a fancy word to like a lot, to describe a lot of, so a lot of things are happening. All they want to say here is that a lot of things can be happening in a social interaction. And so reading these novels can help us understand what's happened, because maybe in the novel you've already read how this person dealt with a person who was like the person you're now dealing with, for example. And so just like the computer simulations can help us get to grips with, that's a lot of times you can say come to grips with. It just means that help us deal with problems or understand complex problems. So a lot of times nowadays, if you want to learn how to fly a plane or something like that, you work on a computer simulation first, so you can start understanding what the complexities are, what might happen before you actually get into a plane. So that's kind of like the novels maybe help us prepare us for social life. So social means with other people, your family, but also your friends, your colleagues, your bosses, things like that. These findings will affirm the experience of readers who have felt illuminated and instructed by a novel, who have found themselves comparing a plucky young woman to Elizabeth Bennet or a tiresome pedant to Edward Casaubon. Reading great literature, it has long been averred, enlarges and improves us as human beings. Brain science shows this claim is truer than we imagined. Okay, Ezekiel?
Okay, these findings will affirm the experience of readers who have felt illuminated and instructed by a novel, who have found themselves comparing a plucky
Plucky?
plucky young woman to Elizabeth Bennet, or a tiresome pedant to Edward Casaubon. Reading great literature, it has long been averred, enlarged and improves us as human beings. Brain science shows this claim is truer than we imagined.
Yes. So basically, the author who wrote this basically just went through all the different little studies that have showed what's happening when we read, and basically coming to the conclusion that reading fiction is good. And it helps us not just because we like it, perhaps, because a lot of times people might say, oh, well, of course, it's just I read for fun or it's enjoyable, but it's actually having a good effect on our brain and also helping us do better in our lives. So we have a few more minutes left, and I'm wondering if you guys agree with this article. Do you guys find value in reading great literature, either in your own language or in English, or do you prefer movies?
I
Selma.
think that
Okay,
both of them have something interesting.
yeah.
It depends of what do you want to do. Is better to see a movie, for example, if it's Saturday night
Yeah.
and you are tired and you want to do something funny, maybe you can go to the movies. But sometimes have a book. It's very very interesting. I have to take the bus every day, and I'm always have a book in my bag to read in the free times. I don't know how to say
In your free time?
in the gap times.
Yeah, in your to kill time, maybe, or
To kill time. Yes,
to
that's right.
use your time wisely, we could say.
Yes, I think that some people think that I am a crazy one because I'm always have a book in the bus stop
Yeah,
just to keep time and don't waste
yeah,
time
just
doing
pass the
other
time. Yeah.
things.
What? So, do you read fiction or do you read nonfiction?
It depends. Sometimes I buy for example, the Forbes magazine to
Yes.
read some news,
Sure.
some business news.
Yes.
But other time I like to read. No, sorry, I like reading Cortázar. Cortázar is an author very famous in Argentina, in Latin America,
Oh, okay.
and he's very interesting. I recommend you.
Okay. Yeah. Write his full name for me over it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And Selma, do you enjoy reading fiction and literature?
Well, before I used to enjoy watching movies
Yeah.
because of the clothes, actors, and the makeup, and also the gestures.
Yeah.
But when I've read lately the book of Elizabeth Gilbert,
Oh,
Eat, Pray, and Love.
Eat, Pray, Love. Yeah.
Yes, it's it was an amazing experience for me. It was the first time that I could read a book from the beginning to the end,
Wow.
and yes, I felt yes, I felt for the first time that I wished if Elizabeth was my friend, so that when I end up reading that book, I could discuss with her
Yeah.
because it was a very interesting book for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
Mm.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I think it's just I think it's interesting. I personally like reading, but I know that a lot of people these days, young people especially, prefer movies or television. And I think it is my experience though that if I get into a book, if it's really good and it's a fiction book, I don't often read fiction. I usually read more nonfiction for learning things and studying and stuff. But when I do read a fiction book, it does um, give me the sense that these are like real people and I can really imagine what's going on. And I really like reading fiction that puts me into a different place, maybe a different time period in life or a different country or something, because that's really an interesting way for me to get a sense of how it could be to live in that time period or to be that person with those thoughts and feelings and things. So, but I like a good movie is good too.
Yes.
I think that the key there is good. Like a good movie can be a really great experience too, and a good novel can be a great sensory experience. You know, your brain's being very activated, but a bad novel or a poorly written novel or a bad movie, boo. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Amparo, you said hi there. Hi. Thanks for coming to class, you guys. I haven't been on Verbling for a month or more, and I've been really busy, but I'm hoping to do some more classes, and hopefully I'll be doing some at different times so I can catch up with some of the students who used to come to my classes pretty often. So thank you
That's
guys
great.
for coming.
But are you planning to schedule more classes for this week?
I have scheduled one more class on Saturday at the same time at 6 p.m. my time, so probably, what is it your time there
Okay.
now? Like,
No, here is right now is 11 p.m.
okay, yeah. So it's hard with the scheduling. There's a lot of new teachers, so they have lots of offerings
Yes.
on Verbling. So I'll
But
just
we
kind
need more teachers.
of, okay. I will try to pop in when I can and come with reading classes and conversation classes and things that you guys want to do. I like to do the intermediate advanced, and I like to do I like the reading classes. They're really interesting, but I also feel like I want to hear you guys talk more, so maybe I'll do some
Okay.
conversation. Yeah.
Okay, Lisa. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
guys. Thank you.
See you. Take
Take
care.
care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, teacher. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, Selma. Talking about the idea of the importance of reading fiction. So maybe you know in English that we describe stories or books in two different ways. So fiction would be would be used to describe stories, books that you read that are made up. Somebody, an author, imagined a story, and so they wrote their story, and that's called fiction. On the other hand, we have nonfiction, which is describes books that are written more about facts, more about ideas, things that people are trying to teach you something you can learn from, like a book on science or technology, or something about if you wanted to learn about the human body or something. Those would be non-fiction. So a lot of times in the world today, in the United States especially, in our educational system, people are pushing nonfiction. So it's very important for students to be able to read for information, to get information, to read science books, to read books about philosophy, psychology, anything that you would want to learn. You would read non-fiction classes as you would like. I haven't been teaching on Verbling for a while, so there's some new changes in the way it's working. So we have lots of new teachers as well, and many languages, so not just English language classes, but also French language classes, and Spanish, and I think Italian even. And so the Verbling.com website is getting very amazing with all the offerings that you can, things that you can do on the website. So I put over here a link to the article that we're going to be reading. I'm going to put it again. It looks like some people are starting to open the link. This is going to open up a Google document. So what I like to do is I like to, usually in the class description that you see on the Verbling page, I like to put the link to the original article, the original web page that the article can be found on. And then what I like to do though for reading is to copy and paste it into a Google document so that I can make it bigger, and then that way we can read it together and everybody can see it either by looking at it on our screen here, because the Verbling classes are recorded, and so some people like to watch the class later, and so they can read along as well. Otherwise, you can just look at the document, open it up yourself using this Google Documents link, and then that way you can open up a new window for in your browser so that you can read along with me. So if you are interested, you can go ahead and click the Join Class button, and we will see who comes to class today. It's 6 p.m. my time. Like I said, my name is Lisa, and I'm one of the Verbling teachers. I've been teaching a lot of classes on Verbling, but I've been off for a few weeks now. And so starting back up again, and today this slot was available, so I took it, and so we'll see who shows up. I know a lot of my regular students cannot make this particular time slot because they are in other parts of the world where they're probably sleeping right now. So, but maybe if you are in Mexico or parts of Central America, South America, maybe in Asia, this might be a good time for you to jump on and spend an hour with me and some other people who show up and do some reading in English. Like I said before, I like to do the reading classes this way because I think it gives you a lot of good opportunities to practice listening, reading, pronouncing words, learning new vocabulary, and I like to use real, authentic articles that are written usually at the intermediate to advanced level. I do. These articles often come from different websites like the New York Times or Wired.com or maybe Time Magazine or something like that. And so these are real articles that people like me, native English speakers, will be reading. So the vocabulary is usually at a higher level, and but it's also usually topics that are of interest to a lot of the people here in Verbling. Topics about learning languages, learning in general, science, technology, human interest stories, things like that. So this particular article is called Your Brain on Fiction. So this article is... Hi everybody, this is Lisa, and I'm one of the teachers here on Verbling, and it has been a while since I have taught a class, but so I'm doing one today, this hour. It is going to be a reading class, and so what I like to do in my reading classes is choose an article. I like to choose an article from a website, usually in this case I think it was the New York Times, and it's from last year. And what we do is we read the article together, so you get to practice reading out loud, so you get to practice your pronunciation, but also you get to listen to me read and to other people read, so you get to practice your understanding, your comprehension, and then we discuss. So I'll go over what words mean, and yeah, so it's a good way to practice all the things that you do in a language. You're reading, except for writing. We're not going to be writing too much, although, of course, we do have the chat where people can write questions or make comments. So if you would like to join this class, you can do so by joining the class. If you are a member of Verbling, then you can join as many